I move to vote to approve the warrants for the period covering September 7th, 2017 through September 20th, 2017, including payables warrant for the town FY 18, 11, and 12, payable warrant FY 16, number 6, FY 18, number 6, sewer enterprise warrant FY 18, SE 9, school warrant FY 18, S4, and municipal light plant warrant FY 18, 6 and 7.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's see, we can't do the public hearing, we can't, DVW would take a while, I assume.
We could, what do you think, 10, 15 minutes for your presentation? So we could probably do the INI study.
All right, why don't we do that? Come on up.
Already a half hour ahead of schedule. How are you?
Terrific.
How you doing?
How are you?
Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm John Potts with Weston and Sampson Engineers.
Okay.
I was back here, I think, in February
Yep.
with you guys. Thank you for listening tonight. I will keep this as brief as I can, because I know how exciting this work is. This is the preparation of the annual plan for looking at II and operation and maintenance program for the next number of years. So we'll just move right in. The goals of the project were to create a plan that's suitable to the DEP's guidelines, or the revised guidelines, to submit to them by the end of the year. We're going to look at a plan that hopefully will identify and minimize II in the system, that will reduce sewer system backups and address structural defects. Now, just a quick reminder, II is clear water, rainwater, groundwater that gets into the pipes and takes up capacity of your system that you don't need to have. It's wastewater that you should be sending out of town. The rainwater and the groundwater takes up space. When we prepared this plan, what we started to look at, we looked at the evaluation of existing data. We collected record drawings, pump station run times, flow meter data. We selected a project duration that was reasonable to the town and reasonable to the town's funding. Then we looked at various project areas throughout the entire sewer system and prioritized them and created a schedule and cost to move forward. Quick review, the sewer system has approximately 170,000 feet of gravity sewers. There's approximately 900 manholes and 12 pump stations. Built between 95 and 2004, mostly through the DCR. There was one project in the industrial area that the town did itself. All of the flow in town ultimately goes to the Woodland Street pump station, which pumped to Holden, and then to the DCR's Holden interceptor, and ultimately to the Upper Blackstone. The industrial area pump station, which is a small area, goes directly to Worcester itself. We collected flow data with Tom Frost's assistance from January 2016 through April 2017 to get a look at what your average daily flows are. In the intermunicipal agreement that you currently have, you're allowable of 614,000 gallons a day of average daily flow. Right now, based on the data that I collected, you're seeing about 186,000 total flow for the town, so you're well within your allowable. We also looked at what we call the maximum day flow, and that's in just gallons. So that's one day, the number of gallons at Worcester Street, which the majority of the flow ultimately in town ends up at Worcester Street, where it's then pumped over to the Woodland Street, and then the industrial area pump station is itself. So in the Worcester Street pump station tributary, it was 257,000 gallons was the maximum day. And then in the industrial area, it was about 34,000. And when we looked at the comparison to the average daily flows for those two stations, it's about double of what you're seeing at each of those stations. So a lot of that can be attributable to II as well as high flows. So a way to estimate the II is you split the months separately between the spring and summer. Spring is obviously your typically higher groundwater months, which are March, April, and May. Summer months being June, July, August, which are typically drier. So when we looked at the two pump stations, we came up with an estimate of approximately 21,000 gallons a day of II in the coming into Worcester Street. In the industrial area, there's about 3,000 gallons a day. Now, what that does to your system is it's an item. It's called T&T cost. It's your treatment and transportation cost. Your treatment cost is what you guys are paying Upper Blackstone, and your transportation cost is basically what it costs the town to get it out of the system, to get it out of their pipes, to get out of the pump stations, to operate your pump stations, pay your DPW staff who maintains the stations, pay the services guys from my company that come out and do O&M on the stations. So you can come up with a dollar value that's attributable to $1 per gallon per day. And a lot of times we do this for the MWA communities, so they're looking at T&T costs, and they range anywhere from $4 to around $6 per gallon per day. So if you translate that back to the II that's shown here, you're looking at $80,000 to $120,000 a year that you're paying to treat your II at Upper Blackstone. So that's again, you're paying to treat that groundwater. So again, I think I jumped ahead, but again, you're part of the Upper Blackstone District. The town pays it based on the meter data at Woodland Street. When they get that meter data, there's no way to differentiate between sanitary flow and II, so therefore, you're paying to convey II to Upper Blackstone. We sat down with Anita, Butch, Jackson, and Tom Frost to just discuss some of the existing issues that they're aware of in the system. In a system as, I would call it as young as yours, it's less than 15 years old, the majority of the II is likely to be coming in from the sewer manholes, where the joints in the manholes, the deeper manholes, the pipelines themselves are all plastic. The joints on the plastic pipe should be in decent shape, that you're not getting groundwater coming in. There shouldn't be holes in the pipe shouldn't be crumbling like you see in older systems that are clay type pipes. Tom has informed me that the II is observed in the Pinecroft area, particularly along the cross-country sewers that are adjacent to the brook. He suspects II at the Prospect Street Pump Station tributary area coming down from the hill behind Holden. And we also were talking about that there's no map of your entire existing sewer system. There's record drawings that are in piecemeal, but there's no one single map that you can go to and look at and say, okay, do I have sewer here? Who's sewer here? Where's the nearest sewer to this neighborhood if they want to come in? And so there's nothing that you can look at in one place. He also told me about some maintenance issues up in the Sterling Place. They're getting issues with diapers and wet wipes, which wet wipes seem to be a common occurrence everywhere across the state, that where memos are coming out about people they say they're flushable, but they chew up pumps pretty good when they get in there. And there's also high hydrogen sulfide at the Sterling Street pump station. But again, those are both maintenance issues and fixed accordingly as part of the capital improvement plan as moving along. It's not really related to the II.
What causes high hydrogen sulfide?
Say again?
What causes high hydrogen sulfide?
It's just that in wastewater flow, it's present in the flow.
Okay.
A lot of times, sometimes if the sewer sits too long, it allows the hydrogen sulfide to build up into the flow, which creates the odors. So I met when we met together with Anita, we talked about a duration that was reasonable to the town. We decided that a 20-year plan was a reasonable duration. DP they have not said you have to have this plan done in so many years. They just want to see a plan in place for you to do II investigations and analysis. So based on a 20-year plan, that comes out to approximately looking at 8,500 feet of gravity sewer on an annual basis. And as well as that 20-year plan, we also would recommend doing 3 other projects. One, create a GIS map, and I'll talk about that later, of the whole system so that you have that map. Once that map is created, every year afterwards, as you go out and you look at 8,500 feet, you can update that GIS map. It becomes a dynamic document. It's not just something that's going to sit there and sit on the shelf. You can continuously update it, make improvements to the system. You can go into that map, update that, change the layers, and just continuously keep moving forward as the town moves forward. We would recommend doing a sewer manhole inspection program, which would be going out and popping every manhole cover in town, basically, and doing an inspection and preparing a summary report. And then the third recommended project, which is what DEP wants to see, and this is what I was backing you guys talking in February, was doing a flow metering program. And I'll talk about the duration of when I think that's suitable to do. I mean, what this does is the 20 years is a reasonable amount of time, I think, for the town to take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach to looking at the operation and maintenance of its system. So,
Mr. Chairman, can we ask questions now or
Absolutely.
again? When you said a manhole inspection, what are you really looking for when you're doing that?
you're looking for infiltration, you're looking for signs of infiltration. I mean, if you're looking for water staining marks, they're showing if they're surcharging the manholes, then you'll see a staining marks around the rings. You'll see what they call mineral deposits. If groundwater is seeping into the joints, it'll be kind of like shiny, sparkling deposits around the thing. So there's a number of signs that you can look for infiltration. You can see if it's leaking sometimes in a manhole where the pipe enters the manhole, that's another source. If the contractor didn't tighten the gasket when he was putting the sewer pipe into it, it can allow groundwater to get in there. So those are particularly in deeper manholes, because they come in like 3-foot sections. So if you have a 15-foot deep manhole, there's 5 pieces that builds on it as it comes up. So you now have 5 seams basically around the manhole, which gives you 5 points of entry of groundwater if it wasn't sealed and seated properly.
Okay.
So in our recommended plan, we would say year 1, we'd create a GIS map of the whole system. And what that would be is we have GPS equipment. It's actually we do it, a guy on a scooter basically will go out, sit on every manhole in town, load it into his data collector, and then we'd come back and download all the data, and all the manholes will then get entered into a GIS mapping as their actual location based on the GPS units. And then we basically play connect the dots with the manholes and the pump stations as he's out there. I mean, obviously the cross-country sewers, he'd have to walk out there, but again, it's like a backpack unit that he puts it on. He's got a little spinning thing over his head, and he just sits there and just punches his data. And by creating that in the first year, again, like I said, it gives you something to use for the next basically 20 years as the program continues. And then, so in the second year, we recommend going out and looking at all the manholes. We would do that with a 2-person crew. We go out there. You typically can open about 40 to 50 manholes a day. So it'd be about 900 manholes, probably about a 2 to 4 week process, depending on how quick they can get them done and weather too. It doesn't adds to it. And then years 3 through 11, we go out and investigate the sewers with its television camera of 8,500 feet a year. In year 12, year 12 would be, your sewer system would be approximately 25 years old at that point. I think that's a reasonable amount of time to go in there and now start metering all your data, like that was of the program that I talked about in February. Come in now, install meters 12 years from now, then start looking at your flows and how they compare to the system. And then after that year, jump back into from years 13 to 23, doing the same thing of, again, an annual investigation of 8,500 feet of pipe a year.
But when, the sewer manhole inspection, by year 12, wouldn't you have to do that again at that point?
The manholes?
Yeah.
Typically no, because if we found anything really significant, I mean, it's a program that you're not locked into doing anything. You can
But
change around.
that seems like where most of the water you're thinking's coming in, so.
But if you catch it in that second year, you should be able to fix it. If there are signs of it, then you would obviously, I would say, we would recommend going out and fixing the manholes. I mean, you can, as part of the 8,500 feet, you can add X number of manholes into that same program for the same price. You can maybe start looking at, okay, we'll look at 50 manholes as well as at the same time.
And that GPS will tell us the ones we actually worked on and the ones we thought there were no issues.
Exactly. And when they're doing the TV camera's he's gonna have to open the manholes anyways. So there would be an engineer with the TV crew that would be looking at the manholes again. So you are looking at the manholes again, because all the manholes have to get reopened again to get the sewer camera in it. So, but they're just not doing a full inspection. So if they see something, obviously it would get noted.
You could check it off and they
Exactly.
check and see.
Yep. So typically, in a program, a full plan, you do the field investigations, which would be manhole inspections, TV inspections, and the flow metering. You'd have the data evaluation phase. You'd find problems, you prepare a cost-effective analysis, and then you go into what they call what's the design, bid, and award in the construction phase. Again, with the age of your sewer system, I really don't anticipate a lot of things. However, when they're out there, you find something, obviously you're gonna fix it. If it's something really significant that's gonna require an emergency repair, you'll know it, and then will be the time to fix it. Now, typically, a full program like this, based on your linear footage, it costs about $25 a foot for the whole program. So basically, if we did that for the town system, you're looking at, it's gonna spend $4.25 million over the next 20 years. I don't think you need to do that. I think the approach to do it now is what we've talked about, is you go and you focus the spending on investigation and evaluation. And then if you find something critical, then the town acts accordingly based on the available funds. And in this program, you're looking at, it would be approximately $1.35 million over the next 23 years.
Is that in today's dollars?
No, it carries a 3.5% escalation factor for every year moving forward, starting in 2018, moving to 2040.
Thank you.
Do we have any idea, like this 21,000 of II and the 3,000, what does that actually cost us?
Like I say, I don't have the exact
Okay.
TNT costs for the town. It's something we can
But it's
figure out.
probably substantial. I mean, if it's that much a day.
Between the $4 to $6, $4 to $6 a gallon, you're looking at $80,000 to $100,000 a year that you're probably paying to treat the II. That's based on anywhere between 4 and 6 gallons. That's a lot of the MWA communities, so it's a little more expensive. I think in Boston, so it's probably a little bit less, but I would say anyway, it's in that ballpark.
80,000 a
Yeah.
year. And if we don't do anything with that, it's obviously just gonna.
Every year, you're just gonna keep paying it with the II that's in the system. So, again, right now, this is what I know you guys, I'm sure wanted to hear. The project cost is the first year to do the GIS mapping, that we would do it in 2018. The anticipated cost is around $31,000. The second year program, which would do the manhole inspections, is about $57,000. And then from years 3 through 11, and then 13 to 23, the average cost is gonna be about $60,000 a year. The low end is in 2020, the project's around $42,000. In 2040, the project's about $80,000. But it averages out completely to just under $60,000 a year for that 20-year period. And then in year 12, to do the flow metering program, you're looking at about $98,000 estimate. Because again, when we were in here before, it was much higher. It was about $143,000. We had, the footage that we had for the sewer system back then was about 250,000 feet of pipe. When we pulled all the record drawings together, we have created one GIS map that I think you have in front of you that shows the pipe. It's around 170,000 is realistically what the pipe is. So obviously it's gonna be less meters than what we were expecting back in February.
So when you do the manhole inspections and you find a deficit, do you fix it, you recommend fixing it right then, or do you?
Depends on the severity of things. Like, if it's just like seeping in and it's just like an occasional, it's something you can probably wait on. But if you have what they'll call is like a gusher, if it's just like a spigot just pouring into it, then yeah, you would go out there and.
And what does that cost to fix?
Based on the severity, I mean, sometimes they'll recommend you line from the ground elevation all the way down to the bottom of the manhole. It can be anywhere from $150 to $200 a foot. So like a 10-foot manhole is probably $2,000 per manhole. Again, I wouldn't expect a huge manhole rehab program out of this either, again, based on the age of your system. But a lot of the times they can go in and just seal the seam on the inside too, if it's depending on where it's showing the signs.
And when they repave a road and they raise the manholes, does that affect that too?
If it's put back properly, no. As long as they reseat the frame and cover back properly, because it's the frame and cover that raises up and down. The manhole structure itself
Right.
stays the same.
Right.
So as long as they seat the cover back on properly, it shouldn't create a problem.
I think, some of the manholes are lower than the street level, the paving level,
Probably, and
Many
groundwater
of
and
them.
rainwater can accumulate
so they can go in.
and ponding on the top of them. Fortunately, like in older manholes, and sometimes you see sometimes they'll just drill holes. They used to drill holes in the cover, and the rainwater would just come pouring into them. But it was because the they could pick with a pick. They could open the manhole a lot easier with a hole in the center of the cover than they're using I can use a pick and a shovel. Our guys have magnets basically that they'll just roll right up to it with a magnet and then just pop it right open. So
There was one manhole in the Temple Street. So couple of months back, you guys did fix it. It was making noise when the car goes in. So that could be one of those issues too.
yep, there could be a crack in the frame that's not allowing it to seat properly, or whoever the last person opened it didn't clean it out when they were putting the cover back on and just left it. So we wouldn't do that when they did the manhole inspection. We'd make sure every manhole is back seated properly.
So that could be quite an amount of money if, let's say, half of them out of what we have are not properly put back in, or if there's a problem. What kind of number out of what we have and how old our system is, as an average, have you come across if there's been a problem?
Within West Wilson?
Yeah, or any other,
It depends on the age of the system. If you work in a lot of older communities and older manholes, then yeah, you see a lot more problems. In the newer systems, you don't see it as much. I would venture maybe a quarter of them, you might have issues. It may not even be as high as a quarter. I mean, again, the manholes and pipes are only 15 years old. They shouldn't be, unless the concrete was bad on the inside, it shouldn't be falling off and cracking on the insides at all. So I wouldn't expect there to be a big manhole issue either.
okay. When you were talking earlier, you said that if it was like 10 feet, it would be 150 to 200 a foot. What is the average manhole?
They're around 10 to 12 feet typically.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen manholes as deep as 30 feet, and I've seen them as shallow as about 5 feet, typically around 4 to 5 feet. But an average sewer manhole, we tend to design them anywhere around 10 to 12 feet typically. We don't like to try to keep sewer depths between 8 and 10 feet.
Okay. Is that GSI map something that you update, or is that the town's responsibility to update?
We would update that. As we were collecting the data, our GIS staff would be able to update the data layer as part of the work.
And would this have anything with the grinder pumps? Will grinder pumps are located and what, needs to be done to those too?
No. When you're looking, typically, when you're looking at II, you're not going to find really anything in the pressure sewer system because the pipes are always 100% full. They're flowing under pressure, so it doesn't allow for groundwater. So this would just focus on your gravity system.
Okay.
I mean, that's something we could always add in. There aren't a ton of areas in town that have the pressure sewer, but they are identified on that preliminary map because I know where the grinders are. I mean, we have the record drawings to show where they all are.
So when you finish this map, though, it will have them on there, where they are?
It won't have it'll have the pressure sewer, but not, yeah, because we could identify those manholes as well, because there's usually a terminal manhole at the end of a run, and then if the run is longer than 1,000 feet, there's usually an intermediate manhole at about 500 feet. So there's a few other manholes, but yeah, we could pick up those manholes.
I just think it's
as well.
important to have a map of everything.
Yeah, we would get those, because there aren't a ton of manholes on the pressure sewer.
Okay.
Those manholes wouldn't be part of the inspection program,
Right.
because
No, no.
the pipe,
Right.
again, is pressure as it goes right through the
Right.
manhole. The same for the force mains. There's no need to look at the force mains, because again, they're flowing under pressure and full all the time. So,
I have a question.
that's all I have to say.
Why there is a leak in the manhole?
Say again?
Because of the way they put the cover on the manhole?
Mhm.
Why there is a leak? Why the water goes in? Is it because of the paving or because of the installation?
It could have been the installation if they didn't put there's a black like tar seal that they put around it. If they didn't put that on there, if it was raised and a plow hit it, it could jar it hard enough. It's hard to say what causes the
Or
manhole leaks.
during the paving, they do leave it little higher, right?
Mhm.
And after that, it never settles down. So when the car goes, it's the manhole lower.
Right.
So how they can fix it? I don't know, leveling it. Leveling, I did talk about that. They said, it's so hard to put it into one
You
single.
talk about re-leveling the cover,
Yes,
basically?
leveling the cover.
They'd take the cover completely off and they'd have to put brick use a bricklayer or a ring.
How expensive it is that?
Um,
That's what they said. It'll be an expensive one to
It-
put it back again.
It's all the paving that's associated with it too, because you'd have to dig around the paving, you'd have to pull the cover off, check the bricklayer. I don't want to quote a price on, so that, because I'm
There are
not.
many in the Goodale Street.
Hmm?
There are many in the Goodale Street. There is one on the corner of the Honey Farm. It's all lower the.
Well, as part of the manhole inspections, we have a whole form, we'll be taking multiple photos of the manhole, that we'd identify exactly all the ones that are in a depressed.
I agree, but every time, when they repave, you may have to do it again, right? Every time they repave, you have to go do the manual inspection again.
Yeah,
Oh, it's an ongoing project. It's not just a one-time thing.
Yes.
It's
Right.
I'm talking about the manual inspection.
yeah, but again, you'd be looking at manholes again as part of the pipes, because you still have to open the manholes again when you put the cameras in the next year. So instead of, within that 8,500 feet, you'd be opening up most of those manholes again 2 years later. So you'd be able to see if something changed from year 2 into year 3 or 5 type of thing.
The water coming in over the top of the manholes or through is only part of it, right? There could be
There could be
water
some-
coming inside through seams and things like that.
Right, and that's what you're looking for more. The water across the top, it typically is not, there's only the 2 holes that allow you the access to it now, so there isn't a lot of water that can get into the covers anymore.
Okay.
They make them they're a lot better than they used to.
Mostly getting inside and
Mostly,
seeing
it's,
seams.
if
and-
there's, yes, through the seams and the insides of the manholes, not through the top. Unless it's a really wetland area up,
Right.
like behind Woodland Street, there could be something coming in the cover that we don't know, and that's what we hopefully find during the projects.
Anita, do you know when we had the sewer rate study, did we have a placeholder for this? I know we had it for the pumps. Did we have something in there?
So, Ty and Bond was waiting for this information about what the estimated annual cost of the study were going to be. So now that we have this, Butch has sent that to Ty and Bond, and they're gonna incorporate those numbers into the annual assumptions of operating costs.
Thanks.
Not only we're putting in the numbers that John has given us, but we've also asked him to put an additional cushion of money on each year's amount, so that if something is found, we have money available in that year to fix that item. And if there's several years where there are no fixes needed, that money would go into the reserves and would be available when we find a larger problem later down the road.
Do you know how much that is?
We were talking between 45 to 50,000 above the annual amount, well below what we originally thought the annual amount was going to be. So what we need to do tonight is to determine if the board is satisfied with this report. We need to still send this to DEP for their review and approval. We will be basing the article on the October 16th warrant for the year 1 cost based on this draft, and which I think is a safe assumption to do. But DEP does need to approve this before we can actually go and formally start implementing this. So I would ask the board if they're willing to accept this and to authorize Weston and Sampson to submit this to DEP on our behalf.
I'll make a motion to accept the report and authorize Weston and Sampson to submit this as our plan to DEP.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Spending money on maintenance, it's the worst.
I need to use it.
Someone's got to do it.
It's the most important money we can spend.
This is a no-brainer.
You end up with a
Right.
mixed building if you don't maintain it.
The little white arrow there, Nick. Other side of the screen, John.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's a little white arrow, yeah, right there.
There it is. I should know this by now.
What's that? All right, let's go with the public hearing for 7:15. Raj?
Public hearing notice. In accordance with MGL Chapter 148, Section 13, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of West Boylston will hold a public hearing on the application of Brentak Northeast Inc., 81 West Huller Lane, Reading, Philadelphia, to amend the currently licensed store located at the 164 Shrewsbury Street, West Boylston, Mass, in the name of BE-AR Holding Corporation by changing the name to Brentag Northeast Inc. and amending the gallons to 26,400 gallons of flammable liquids up to the limits in accordance with NFPA 30 pursuant to 527 CMR 14-14.0323. The hearing will be held on Wednesday, September 20th, 2017 at 7:15 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room of the Town Hall, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston.
Thank you. And the applicant has requested a continuance to October 4th meeting. We just need a motion to continue with that.
Make a motion to continue the hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. You want to continue with DPW?
Sure.
All right.
So unfortunately, our DPW Director, Butch Jackson, is not able to be with us tonight. He had a death in the family. So I'm stepping in for him on the remaining items. He wanted to provide an update as to the Newton Street Drainage Project and the library parking project. So on the Newton Street Drainage Project, which the board has approved, originally we had thought that the work was going to begin this week, but with the rains and the storms, that project has been delayed. I'm hoping they'll be able to start next week. They will do a round of notification to people in the area to let them know on the exact start date once we hear back from the contractor. That still should be done in the mid to late November timeframe. So that project will get going shortly. The library parking project, however, the bids came in. We received only one bid, and it was much higher, almost double what we had expected it to be based on the estimates put forward by the engineering company. They had estimated that it would be around $46,000. So we had asked only for an allocation of Chapter 90 funds in the $50,000, but the actual bid came in at almost $79,000. So it's Butch's recommendation that we not award any contract, that we wait and go out to bid again in the early spring, probably in the March timeframe, when we'll probably find that the contractors are ready to put more work on their books and we might get more competitive pricing on that project. And then the other item we had tonight was we have two annual services contracts that I need the board to approve and then sign later. We have the first contract, which is for the paving, and that is the low qualified bidder was Mass Broken Stone of Berlin, Massachusetts, for the paving of various streets. And we received very good rates on that one. I believe it was about $51 a ton, which is extremely low.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of a couple years ago, it was $80 a ton. So that was a great price, so we're recommending that the board approve and sign that. And then the other contract that I'm asking you to approve and sign this evening is for the milling and grinding of various roadways for some of our paving projects. And the low qualified bidder for that work was PJ Keating of Lunenburg, Mass. And the amount on that was $1.68 per square yard. And on that one, it's good because we have, within the contract, we get to retain a portion of the millings, which we can use quite well within DPW projects. So I'm asking the board to approve and sign that as well.
So can you get a motion on the first one?
Make a motion to approve the contract with Broken Stone of Berlin, Mass. for the paving of various streets.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to approve PJ Keating of Lunenburg.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. New business, review of goals of FY 17-18.
So in your packet, we have the set of goals that we had reviewed approximately 2 months ago. They were the outcome of the workshop that the board had earlier this summer. I had asked for feedback from the board if there were any edits that you would like to have made to the plan, and we didn't receive any requested edits. So we're bringing this back to you tonight to get finalized. And put it on PowerPoint as well so that our viewers could see what we're talking about. The board had put forward specific goals, not only for the Board of Selectmen, but also for the town administrator. And the 4 goals for the Board of Selectmen were to enhance economic development within the town, and I'll go in a little bit more detail for each of these. So enhance economic development within the town. The second was to establish a formal town beautification program. The third was to conduct a citizen employee customer satisfaction survey. And the fourth was a carryover goal from last year to complete an RFP for lease or use of the Tiverton Drive property that the Board of Selectmen has control over. So to get more specific into each of these goals, for goal number 1, enhance economic development, what you had talked about as part of the work under this goal would be to look into improving the permitting process for new and existing businesses. We've had some communication with business owners saying that they feel that some of the process is onerous and very expensive to them, and they feel that it is prohibitive for some businesses to locate into town. The second was to develop a new permitting guide, which would provide more information to potential business owners as to what the process is, so that they're aware when they start out in that process, what different steps they need to go through. And then the other thing was to look at our various zoning bylaws or other bylaws to see if there are some changes that we could make to make the actual process of establishing a business within our community more user-friendly. So that was goal number 1. Goal number 2, to establish the formal town beautification program. A large part of the concern that the board had that they wanted to work on was this issue, this ongoing issue that we have of certain sections of town where there is property that is not maintained well. It becomes very unsightly, and we have neighbors who feel that the aesthetics of that property are bringing down the value of their own abutting property. And so, having heard that from various different landowners in various different parts of town, the board talked about looking into establishing a blight bylaw. We've heard that there are other communities who have successfully done this, so part of this goal would be to look at existing bylaws from other communities to see what we might want to put into place for our community. The second was to look at the existing town buildings and structures that we have, look to our own situations and see what might need repair or upgrading, so that we can improve the appearance of the property that the town owns. And another specific item that was talked about was to reestablish the annual townwide cleanup day, working in conjunction with DCR, the Board of Health, the Solid Waste Advisory Team, and DPW. Also, in conjunction with that, look to implement a regular roadside cleanup program, meaning that we would go to the roadsides on a rotating basis, using hopefully the Worcester County House of Correction work crews to do that regular roadside cleanup. Another concept was to establish a street sign replacement program. We've been receiving notices from people in various parts of town that signs are unreadable or in some cases missing. So that was something that we thought we would look into, as well as other possible projects that we might develop along the way. The third goal was to establish the citizen and employee survey. It's been a number of years since the town has done a full survey. So the thought was to try to gain some feedback from not only the citizens, but from employees to see, what is it that the town's doing right? What could we do better? What are areas of concern? And we had talked about working with area colleges to get interns for assistance on this project, anticipating that it would probably be something that would be this late fall or winter to coincide with the college semesters, and we would look to establish 1 or 2 members of the Board of Selectmen to work with the staff and the interns on that project. Fourth goal being the carryover goal of developing the Tiverton Drive RFP. That would be that the town administrator would take the old RFP previously used, update it, and present that to the board for consideration. Then we would go through the formal RFP process, anticipating that that would happen during the late fall and winter. And until we see what we get from responses, if any. It's rather hard at this time to try to determine what timeframes we might be bringing forward any recommendations for establishing agreements with a developer to town meeting. There's no way we can establish a timeframe on that one at this time. So that was the fourth goal of the Board of Selectmen. The goals reviewed for the town administrator are to do a complete review and overhaul of all job descriptions. I think you've heard me talk about before that before we can complete the compensation study for our employees, we found that we really need to do an overhaul of all the job descriptions. They need to be brought up to date and in a standardized format. Second goal would be to develop a 5-year revenue and expenditure projection. That has been done in the past, but it needs to be brought up to date. And again, that's something that I've already started working on with students, accounting students from Assumption College. We've also talked about the town administrator developing a facility manager position for FY19. I've been working on that draft, talking to various different communities, and I have my second meeting with school administration on Friday. The fourth goal would be to continue with that ongoing work of the master plan update. It's been a much slower process than anyone on the townwide planning committee thought it would be. Part of that is a complication of just achieving quorums for those meetings. But we're committed to moving ahead, and we're hoping that we can bring that close to completion within the FY18 period. And then the fifth one is also a carryover goal to complete the updated financial policies and procedures, taking the existing policies that we have, update them, modify them if necessary, and we've also been gathering some other best practice policies we'd like to add into that mix. So the finance team that I work with is putting together that. We'll be working with the finance committee to review that and get their sign off on it before we bring it to the board. So those were the goals that had been put forward for both the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, consider approving the hiring of Holly Luch as Recreation Director effective October 1st, 2017 at a monthly stipend of $750.
I don't know if the Parks Commission wants to add anything to it. I mean, I have no, I'm sure they looked into it and this is what they thought.
Come on up, Jim. Jim, just say your name.
Jim Pedoni, Parks Commission. So I was asked to come because I was told that there were some questions in regard to stipend amount and everything, so just here to field any kind of questions you have.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, basically, CPC just paid for a well because you guys didn't have $4,000 to water the lawn, but you're looking to spend $9,000 on a director. I think it's great. I just want to make sure that the budget can support, the revolving fund can support that, on an ongoing basis. That was my main concern.
Sure. So essentially, the expectation of the recreation director would be to bring in enough money to sustain their own salary. There's been plenty of discussion in past years where it doesn't seem like the town really wants to fund this position any other way. So the prior director was being paid $300 a month, and it's my opinion that essentially was a donation of time based on how much time she put in and what was what we were paying. We had 3 applicants since she has been since she resigned, and one of them ended up being somebody that really wasn't an applicant. She was more looking to volunteer to help the actual rec director. The other person we didn't feel was qualified for the position. And Holly, I had talked to her a few times prior to having her come in, and she seemed very qualified. She currently is the rec director in Princeton. She lives in Sterling. So I think there's some opportunity there between towns to be able to get things going, but she wasn't going to work for $300 a month. She came up with, we didn't require any specific hours. She was kind of really looking for what kind of hours we were going to require, but essentially we're not dictating specific hours. We're dictating run some programs that people are going to be interested in and make sure that you can, compensate your salary as part of this and try to run them as lean as possible to break even, yet, like I said, make enough money to cover expenses. So what she came up with in her own mind was a certain number of hours she needs to work to be successful, and roughly comes out to about $12 an hour is what she's looking for to do this job, so slightly above minimum wage. We have a little over $2,000 in a recreation account, and that account is specific for these programs, so it's not the same as the field account, which would be money that we would use for like a well or paying certain bills, et cetera, for those types of things. So it is separate money. We don't really have enough money to do any more than 3 months right now in that account. She understands this, and essentially, I think she has about 3 months to be able to sustain her existence and become successful. So it's my opinion that if that account gets drained, we will need to supplement, a couple $100, because we don't quite have enough for 3 full months from the field account. But after that period of time, if it's not working out, then we're not going to be able to continue with the program.
Do you know what kind of programs he's planning to do, and what maybe the charges?
I don't know exactly. We went over a lot of the different things that the previous rec director did. We haven't dictated anything specific. There's always been the golf program, the tennis program. There's been a few other internal type things that Jen ran and stuff like that. But she wants to do similar type of things. I think she's also interested in doing more than just youth recreation, but, for adults, sewing club or sewing type of class type of thing. So ideas like that. But again, I have a feeling that she's going to be able to do some of this pretty quickly based on contacts and things that she has from her, being a rec director over in Princeton.
So do you think we could generate that kind of money, 750?
She seems to feel confident in doing it. So she was very experienced, and the board felt that she was capable of doing it. We'll see what happens. I think it's been close to 6 months that we haven't had a rec director, and to be honest, I haven't had, I get the board of the commission gets all of the recreation emails now in her absence, so that they don't be,
There are
left
so many
alone.
people are asking.
And, not a lot of emails have come, though.
Yeah.
So, I get requests for certain things, and a lot of them were, I would end up handing off to youth organizations, like basketball questions and football signups and baseball signups, and those aren't handled from the rec department, so I would forward them to the appropriate people. The other one was the after-school program, where I don't think she's gonna run that. And that's a very expensive, costly thing to run, because you need to have staff, and a problem we ran into with staff in the past was, because of the amount of money they were making, we had to put them on the town pay schedule, so we couldn't pay them a less amount of money. It had to fall into do you remember?
The wage schedule.
Yeah.
But that can be corrected. We can create a, student rec director position that's outside of that wage schedule. In the future, if that's something you're interested in doing. I had that conversation with Jen, and she had said, no, I can run this program using that wage schedule, and I said, okay, fine. But that, you're not stuck to that if that's the only reason why, that in the future, that's not gonna happen.
Well, and it wasn't just that program, it was other programs that required students, like, for example, the summer rec program. So again, the summer rec program turned into a bit of an issue, and we had some loss there, because, Jen went to go hire kids, and then we didn't get enough participation, but, she couldn't expect these kids, she basically said, I'm gonna hire you. So, in order to keep them around and make them, in case she needed them for other positions, she hired them and had them work, and, didn't work out so well, from a financial standpoint because of participation, but.
Now, we're talking the $750 a month, and we'll get you roughly 3 months, but the cost of each program will cost too. So she needs to, if you pay a presenter $150 or $200 to come and do a presentation or whatever, that's gonna have to be added in too every month. So that has to be part of the cost. So, it could even be less than 3 months if things
True.
don't go good, but, But I think it's a win because she's in Princeton, so I think right away she can bring groups that she has going on in Princeton right over here, I think. I mean, so I think that's a win for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bit of a risk here, but I think it's worth taking a shot and giving her an opportunity.
And I think we should definitely have an in-town and out-of-town fee. So the residents
Sure.
in town, you know, they
Yep.
get it, you know, because that tax money is helping the fields and where they use the buildings they may be using. So,
I think it's great we're trying to do something for the kids, though. I mean, it's been a while since we've had anybody.
Has she been doing this a while, Jim, in Princeton?
Yeah, it's been a few years, I don't remember exactly
So
how
she's
long.
been successful there,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
she's been continuing it.
Yeah.
I think it's nice, especially if she's looking at also doing adults and, you know, especially with things that are going on in town. I think it's a nice combination. I know it's been a struggle to get people and students to attend. But it sounds like she's got a good head on her shoulders and hopefully she'll, you know, she understands that this is all the money that's there, so
Right.
she knows it's kind of make or break it for herself now.
Yeah, and she, you know, asked some good questions as well. She didn't just jump into it, like, you know, she needed this.
Yeah.
It was more of a, she wanted to make sure that things were gonna, you know, she was gonna be supported to be successful, so, you know.
is she self-sufficient in Princeton, or is it town-funded?
I think it's town-funded, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure.
They have a roughly $4,000 written into their rec department annual operating budget, but we were not able to get any information about what they have within their revolving fund.
I think if the parks can move some money around, I mean, I think 2.5 months is probably kind of tough for her to set up, especially
it
with the
is.
months we're coming into.
But as long as she's generating
some.
something, then it's
Right.
not a full loss, then
Right.
it'll stretch out a little bit longer.
Right.
So you know, that 3 months would basically be a complete loss each month.
Because we're coming into probably the, you know, the
Right.
cold winter months where you can't have any of those outside activities, so.
Right.
Okay,
Do we have a
I'll
motion?
make a motion
Oh.
to, no, I'm sorry.
Does she have programs that she wants to start right away? Or do you know?
I don't remember. I think she's had some that she has that would, you know, fit right in, but I don't know what the time frame is.
So you're looking for maybe October to see some results? Is that
Well,
when you're gonna
I was
start?
thinking October 1st would be the start
Or
date.
start? Okay,
So in that time frame, she would then get going, so I'm not sure that we would see a program
right,
in October.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint her to the position of Recreation Director effective October 1st for the stipend of $750.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, report on donation bins. Fiora has come down a little bit. Is there anything to talk about?
Nancy has a
Sure.
summary.
I put a report in your agenda packet. On August 30th, I contacted the 6 remaining bin locations, and I have comments from the people I spoke with. Everybody seems to be in good shape. There were no issues at this time, and they said if there are issues, they know that they needed to contact this office.
Right. It's been night and day since they took that out of there. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
So-
And we haven't seen any other problems
Yeah,
since then.
yeah, so-
Either we were concerned that people would go to other bins,
Right.
and that hasn't happened so far. Has
That's-
it been over a month, Nance, that the other ones are gone, about?
I think about a month, yes.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
That's great. All right, thank you, Nancy. Consider referring zoning bylaw amendment, reducing the allowed truck weight of a commercial eligible to be parked overnight in a residential district to the planning board. Do we know how much they want to reduce it by?
So it's currently 18,000 pounds, and what's being proposed is to bring it down to 12,000 pounds and also it has to be a 2-axle vehicle, can't have more than 2 axles. So Bentley Hartlett's been working with the planning board to try to determine, if that would unreasonably prohibit, the smaller commercial vehicles that we currently have people, driving home for their convenience, and they seem to think that by establishing it at the 12,000 pounds and having it be 2 axles, that would allow those types of smaller commercial vehicles to still be able to be parked at people's homes overnight, but it would prevent those larger vehicles, the problematic vehicles, from being in the smaller condensed residential areas.
So they're gonna put that in the bylaw about the 2 axles in the
Yes,
weight.
that's written into the motion.
Okay.
So the planning board had asked that the Board of Selectmen vote to send this over to the planning board for the policy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Okay.
This is just for overnight parking,
Right.
right? So if somebody comes and goes during the day, they're fine. It's
They're
the
fine.
overnight part that's
Correct.
come into problems.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Recognize the acceptance of personal donation in the amount of $250 to the Council on Aging for the gift account to aid in events and activities and appropriate expenditures of the funds for that purpose.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And review warrants for the October 16, 2017 semi-annual town meeting.
Shall I walk us through the list? Okay. So this is still, this is the list of articles that we've received. And as I go through each one, I'll give you a brief description of it. We have the language for the articles currently being reviewed by town council. She was not able to get finalized language on these ready in time for tonight, but we will be getting it probably early next week, and I'll send that along to both the selectmen and to the finance committee as soon as I receive it. But at this point, we have 21 articles tentatively, but I think we're going to be looking to remove one of these articles, and I'll explain that when we get to that point. So the first article being proposed is the standard reports of officers and committees. The second article is the article that allows us to get authorization to pay prior year's bills. We currently do not know of any prior year's bills that need to be addressed, which is a good thing. But we do put this article on each warrant just to be safe. The third would be our standard budget fix article, and at this point, the 2 accounts that we know of that would need some minor adjusting are the, we have some adjustment that needs to be made in the cemetery department wages because of a change in position assignment for one of the cemetery employees. Previously, he had been declared to be a seasonal employee and was not eligible for benefits or overtime, but he had been improperly classified as such. When reviewed by the personnel board, they determined that he is currently a full-time employee, or if his hours reduced somewhat, he would be considered a part-time employee. In both cases, he would be eligible for benefits. So they needed to increase their wage line accordingly. The other item that we're looking at, I'm drawing a blank on it. Ray, can you help me?
With the cable, was it the cable,
Oh, thank you, the cable, yes. We just needed to do a minor $5,000 adjustment for the cable TV operating budget. As you recall, it's the first year that it is built into the general operating budget as required by state law. So those are the 2 that we know of at this point. The next article is a law that we've been advised by bond counsel that we need to vote. It's to accept a state statute that allows us to take the premiums received from bonds or notes where we borrow money, that we can actually use those toward project costs. And we can't do that. We can't take that extra premium received from the bond unless we accept the state statute. So we're being advised by bond counsel to do that. The next item is the purchase of a replacement ambulance. And this is where we are looking to take the ambulance receipts reserved to purchase a replacement ambulance. The cost that we have received a quote for is $295,000. We have adequate money within the ambulance reserves to do that. So that would be at no additional cost to the taxpayers. The Article 5 would be to allow for the purchase and related borrowing to replace a fire truck, engine 3. And that would be for the amount of $575,000. And this would be a borrowing inside the debt limit, inside 2.5. So this would not be a debt exclusion. This would be inside the operating budget, inside our limits. And this would basically be funded by debt that we currently are paying for a street drainage project that was borrowed in 2002. That's coming off the books this year. So the money that we've been spending on the the principal and interest for that borrowing can now be applied to the fire truck purchase. So there would be no additional cost to the taxpayers for the purchase of the fire truck. It would just be replacement of debt for one item to this new item.
And how much would that be?
The amount of the fire truck is $575,000.
In 20-year borrowing?
That would only be a 5-year borrowing.
5-year borrowing? Okay.
The next item would be a replacement truck for DPW, and that would be a request to use capital funds in the amount of $42,000. Article 6 would be to pay for the resurfacing of the Goodale tennis courts and basketball courts, and that is in the amount of $35,000. Now there's depending on whether or not the Capital Investment Board agrees, there's also the possibility to pay that for that project cost out of free cash.
Are those needed work?
Excuse me?
Are those needed? The resurfacing of the tennis court?
Yes, it's needed. We've had numerous complaints over the years. The resurfacing of the courts has approximately a 5-year useful life, so it's something that does need to be done regularly. And actually, I was talking to the chairman of the Capital Investment Board, and it's something that we're going to have to make sure we build into the capital project schedule moving forward.
When they did the repaving last?
I don't have an answer to that, Roger.
It's
Sorry.
7 years old.
Seems to be,
That's
looks,
when they,
It's 7 years old, it's never been
it's been
resurfaced.
resurfaced. It's
So
been-
it's past its useful
looks
life.
good. Looks good.
I need it back, on the fire truck, you said 5 years, would we just ban that for the 5
It
years
would be a
then?
ban, yes.
And the repaving of the tennis courts can't be used CPC money?
No, because
No,
it's.
we were told-
Maintenance?
Yeah.
It's not eligible.
Okay.
Let's see, then we have Community Preservation Fund project, and that was for money toward the Affordable Housing Trust, and that's in the amount of $25,000. We have the PEG Board is recommending some equipment and infrastructure improvements to the cable TV system within this building. They do not have a dollar amount assigned to that yet. They'll be meeting again before our meeting on October 4th, so that they'll have a dollar amount to put forward. And then we have, as we talked about earlier tonight, we have year 1 of the I&I study project. So we'll be taking the numbers that we received from John Potts tonight and inserting that into that. The funds for that I&I study year 1 cost would come from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. The library was fortunate to receive a used phone system that's in almost new condition, and they had previously been wanting to ask for capital funds for this, but with this donation now they only need to ask for the funds for the installation of it at $1,500, and that would be a free cash allocation. We have a standard article for the depositing of funds into the stabilization fund and depositing into the capital investment fund. Until we actually get our certified free cash number from DOR, we won't know how much we'll have available to put into either fund. The numbers have gone off to the Department of Local Services today, and we should hear roughly a week before town meeting what our certified free cash numbers are. So that will be a last-minute decision in terms of dollar amounts to be placed into either of those articles.
Do we know what we're expecting?
I would hate to speculate at this point. We have 2 personnel-related articles put forward by the Personnel Board. The first one is to ask the voters to modify the personnel policy to allow any changes in position grade assignment to be made by the Personnel Board. Currently, the way the personnel policy is written, it requires a town meeting vote for any of those changes to be made, which basically means that if there's any time when, position change needs to be done for legitimate reasons, that employee, that department has to wait 6 months or so before any change can be made. So the request would be to change just that section of that policy to allow that change to be approved by the personnel board based on a unanimous vote. The Article 16, the personnel board is looking just to make changes to how weekend overtime is determined and calculated. Article 17 would be asking the town to accept the stretch energy code as a town bylaw. I'm sure people recall that we've talked before about the fact that we're moving ahead to prepare for applying for green community status with the Department of Energy. And this is one of the criteria that we have to meet in order to be eligible to apply. The stretch energy code just provides stricter standards in terms of the energy efficiency for commercial construction and for large residential construction. And we, at our next meeting, we'll actually be talking about that, doing a public and a televised presentation, but we also will be doing a lot of public education on cable TV, flyers, etc., to help people understand exactly what it means, what it would mean to them, what it means to the community to adopt that stretch energy code. The next two articles, 18 and 19, are at the request of several citizens to ban recreational marijuana facilities and sales within the community. The two articles that we have, one is to change the general bylaws, and the second is to change the zoning bylaws. According to Copeland and Page, we do need to vote both to make sure that we have a belts and suspenders approach to banning recreational marijuana. I did hear, though, from the chair of the planning board today that he feels that we just don't have the time to take any action on the zoning bylaw article. So I believe that one will be coming off this warrant. Spoke to town council this afternoon. She says that we can work to put together that zoning bylaw article related to this for our special town meeting that we're going to be having this winter. But we would move ahead with the general bylaw change on this.
Is that a 2/3 vote, the general?
That would be a majority vote for regular bylaw.
So it doesn't need to go to the ballot box, we just done a town meeting.
We did not do the ballot box referendum process, which is why she's suggesting that we have it be both a bylaw and a zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So this would be town meeting votes. The next item is the reducing the truck weight that we previously talked about a few moments ago, and that would be zoning, and that would require 2/3. And the last one is to amend the sign bylaw specifically to address this concept of the electronic signs. And that's, as the zoning bylaw change would also require 2/3 vote.
Is the sign one, is still not gonna be allowed to have scrolling? Well, I know it's gonna have pictures. Right now, you can't have scrolling text.
Let me see if I have that detail for you, Pat. I'm not sure I have it in front of me.
I thought it was gonna be, you can have pictures, and the other thing can fade, it can fade in and out slowly. I think that wasn't that the only two
Yeah,
things
I
we
don't
talked
think we're
about?
gonna allow,
We didn't say anything about scrolling.
No pictures allowed.
Now we're gonna be able to have
We
pictures,
can able to
Yeah.
allow.
but
No
scrolling, something that they have to, we said, well, the Economic Development Committee said, something that you have to stop and kind of read, or when you're driving, trying to read it, we're not asking for
that's what,
that.
right, that's what I wanted, the scrolling text is distracting and it's gonna cause accidents.
So the way that it's written, as presented to me by the chairman of the planning board, the article itself reads, to see if the town will vote to amend the West Boylston zoning bylaw changeable copy signs section 5.6.d.3.e v to remove the limitation that allows only text messages on digital display signs. So that is what the article is asking. It removes that text only
Okay, so
requirement.
it'll still leave the
It will
no
allow,
scrolling text.
it will allow for pictures, which it currently does not.
But then we'll just have to, I mean, I feel that we just have to enforce the brightness of some of them, because we have one in town that you drive by it late at night, and it brightens up the whole
Very
street.
bright.
So And I'm just curious, where is that? I see 19 being the parking one. Which one is the signed one, though?
Number 21, do you have the
Okay.
updated copy?
I'm looking at the agenda package that was
I don't
emailed
have
to
that
us.
either.
Sold one.
I put
So
it in front of
19?
each of you.
Oh, okay.
So what's 20? What is 20 again?
20, so
Top street.
let me read through them quickly.
No, just, that's fine, just, I see 19 here, what's,
Okay, so
20?
number 20 is to amend the zoning to reduce the truck weight. And number 21 is to amend the sign bylaw. You have updated copies of the.
And then 19 is what?
To amend the truck weight, excuse me, to the recreational marijuana zoning bylaw change.
Okay, so something must have been taken out since this, because 19
Things have
Is
been
the truck.
rearranged
is
since,
the truck.
things have been rearranged since that earlier version.
Right.
So what you have in front of you stapled is the latest iteration.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Finance committee, appreciate it.
Yeah, we met earlier, to got for us to pass through the warrant. I guess in summary fashion, we don't have any fundamental objections to anything on the warrant, but a few comments for you to consider. For Article 5, the replacement ambulance, with the changing needs of the towns and the changes in the nursing homes that are serviced or not serviced by the ambulance service, we really do believe we need a fundamental and basic look at what is the nature of the services that the town will provide over the next few years. There'll be another ambulance coming up in 4 or 5 years looking for replacement, and is one ambulance correct? Is 2 ambulances correct? Privatizing, what other options are there for dealing with that service? For the fire truck, similar questions. Are we going to continue to maintain a completely independent and freestanding fire department? Options for regionalization, options for other consolidation of resources that we think really need a more detailed discussion before the next major piece of fire equipment comes up in 2 years, I think, to the tune of $600K, I guess. And finally, under Articles 18 and 19, the questions really raised, is there going to be an open dialogue within the community of the interface between perceived community values and lost revenue that would come about from not having marijuana dispensaries in town? Generally, we don't take an opinion on the bylaw articles, but this is one that may have a revenue impact that is unquantified at this point.
And asking that question this morning, there was a meeting at CMRPC of the area managers, and we asked exactly what are the potential for revenues for the sale of recreational marijuana. The most we can apply is a 3% tax on the sales, but there's really no way to predict what the volume of sales will be, so really no way to predict what annual revenues might be associated with the recreational marijuana.
But I guess the question is more, is there a plan for some sort of open community dialogue on the issue, precluding any dispensaries going forward? Is that really what we want to do as a town? We're not taking a position either way, other than what's the discourse, and you're saying we can't quantify what the impact of that would be, which in and of itself, I guess, would give me a little bit of pause.
All right, thank you, guys. Anything else?
Any other comments?
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
John, I do have
you.
one
Good.
question on the capital. Can you just, the DPW truck, did we not buy a truck a year ago, or was it 2 years ago?
2 years.
2 years ago, and what
This truck
is
that's
that
being
replacing?
replaced is the old gray pickup truck that's driven by the director. It's,
So we're buying him a new truck. Is it new or is it used?
he's looking to buy a new truck. This is a truck that he's used for, small plowing jobs, etc., hauling equipment, supplies, whatever. The one that we have, I don't remember what the year is, I didn't bring my capital file, but it's, running higher in repairs, has a lot of rust, so it's getting past its useful
I
life.
think it's like an '08 or something. It's not the one we bought 2 years ago. Is
Okay.
that what you're thinking?
Yeah,
It's
I
not.
just wanted to make sure, and so the one he's driving now goes away. Nobody else is gonna be using that. They're not keeping it in the fleet.
I'm not sure, I don't remember if that was gonna be traded or used for just on site, I don't recall.
Okay, it seems like been adding a fair amount, so just if we can get some more information on that, it would help me. I'm glad to know we're not replacing the one we just bought 2 years ago.
Yep.
But also, are we really adding, and if we're adding another truck, is it really necessary to keep the other truck? That's where my concern is.
What happened with the DPW, about 10 years ago, they needed all new trucks, maybe even 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They used Chapter 90 money and replaced all their trucks at once. So when you replace every truck at once,
So it's not rotating.
right, so they're trying to, they've been, for several years, they've been stretching out some of their trucks to try to get them on a more natural rotation. So we are replacing them every couple of years, a truck gets replaced. So that's why we're seeing now, an accelerated thing, because some of these trucks are getting very old. So I don't know if this is one of them, but that's why we're seeing a lot of trucks. In the past couple of years, we've been seeing a lot
Right,
of them.
seems like
because
we've done a lot.
Yeah, because we made the short-sighted decision to replace the entire fleet in one fell swoop
Okay.
many years ago.
So instead of doing it like the police cars and the
They're
ambulance and
They're
everything.
working on getting onto that schedule, is part of, at least they were, 3 years ago when I was on the finance committee, so.
Okay. If we could just get a follow-up for that, please.
Town administrator report.
Thank you. The first thing was that the board had asked for a little bit more detail about the online sewer bill payment fees. And what we have now is that the online payment feature is fully operational. We had a few problems with it at first, but those kinks have been worked out, and people seem to be very satisfied with how it's working right now. The fees associated with that are two types of fees. For individuals who use electronic checking to pay the fee, the Unibank is the bank that we work with to do the service. Unibank charges 25 cents per electronic check payment for each transaction. If it's a credit card that they use to pay, and we do accept MasterCard, Discover, Visa, and American Express, the credit card company themselves charges a fee to the user based on the dollar value of the transaction. So the fees range from $2.50 for a payment that might be $1 to $99, $5 for a payment in the range of $100 to $200, and so on. And the complete list of fees is found online on our town's website, on the Pay Bills Online section of the website. So, we're getting feedback from people that they feel that the credit card payment probably isn't going to be as useful as they originally thought it would be, because the fees are quite high. But the electronic check fee at only being 25 cents is cheaper than putting a stamp on an envelope. So people are finding that
And that's
helpful.
pretty standard on most of the online
It is.
that we have in town at 25 cents
Yes.
per check.
Just wanted to update the board. The other day, I did attend a conference at Holy Cross that was put on by MAPC. Lieutenant Governor was there, Department of Local Services was there, and it was their annual conference to talk about regionalization, but this year they put more focus on the best practice areas of the Community Compact Program. And this is the time where communities can reapply for Community Compact status and sign themselves up for new best practice areas. Because we haven't totally finished our 3 best practice projects, we can't reapply until we get this completed. So we still have our housing production plan work that needs to be done this fall and winter, and then we'll be able to reapply for the Community Compact best practices and additional grants. But they had some great topics. It was very helpful to get more of the details in terms of what the state expectations are for the Community Compact program moving forward. We'll only be allowed to apply for 2 best practice areas this next go-round instead of the 3. I think they're finding that they stretched themselves a little too thin in terms of level of support they had to provide, as well as level of funding for some of those grants. We did receive a letter of intent from our veterans agent, Doug Horka, that he plans to retire effective July 2018. Originally, he had thought he was going to retire earlier this year. He changed his mind, and now he was very kind enough to give us much advance notice that he does plan to retire next July. So over the next few months, he and I will be looking to see what our options are for replacing him. He had suggestions that we may want to reach out to other communities to see if we can convince some other communities' part-time veterans agents to fill our slot. He did say that while he himself has put in many hours a week in the office, it really isn't necessary based on the volume of veteran service requests and benefits that we provide for our veteran residents. So, it may be that we'll be very easily be able to take someone else from another community and take that person on part-time hours here in our community and make it work. So I'll keep the board updated as Doug and I work forward to see what options we have moving forward. The next item is we have the cemetery superintendent, Kevin McKee, has requested consideration to be allowed to work as a seasonal snowplow driver for the DPW on an as-needed basis when not working his regular hours for the cemetery department. This had been discussed before, voted before. It requires that the board give approval for this, and if the board gives approval, then he would have to file his disclosure statements, etc., with the town clerk, because he would be filling two different positions within the community. So I need the board to vote to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We do have Senator Chandler and Representative O'Day coming to meet with us on October 18th, and just wanted to ask that if you have any questions or concepts that you want to put to them before they come to see us on the 18th, if you could let Nancy or I know, we can give them some heads up and they'll be prepared to speak to the specifics on those when we meet with them that night.
Do we have some items on the list now, right?
I think we've used up all of the items that we had previously on the list,
So we have nothing up
unless
till
you want to
now.
bring up the $5 million again.
Definitely.
That just goes
Should we
without
bring-
saying, doesn't
Should we
it?
bring up money for the senior center? Should we bring
Yeah.
up money for everything?
I just hope they
So
make a
there's
checkbook.
nothing, we have nothing on the list now for this next meeting yet.
Nothing concrete. So if you have any suggestions,
A blank check.
let's see, and the last one is, when the Red Cross was doing the announcements with Hurricane Harvey, we had staff here suggest that we do a fund drive for hurricane relief. And so we held a fund drive for town employees and town officials that first week of September. And I was amazed at the generosity of everybody. We collected $500 to generate to Red Cross. So that was fantastic. And I just want to thank everyone who participated for their generosity, because I thought that was great. And then one last item, we've received another notice of retirement of one of our employees. Our longtime town clerk, Kim Hopewell, has announced her retirement from her town clerk position effective the end of September. So she has been out, and she will continue to be out on leave time until her date of retirement. So she won't be here for people to wish her well and wish her goodbye, but we are planning a retirement get-together for her to recognize her years of service, and as soon as we have the details on that, we will be letting everybody know. So Kim has done a great job in her role as town clerk, and she will be sorely missed. So I wanted to let people know.
On behalf of the board, I think everybody recognizes what a great job she's done and how much we're gonna miss her.
Mr. Chen, what is the plan in the meantime?
We'll be advertising the position. It's now an appointed position.
Yeah,
So we'll be advertising it, and per the policy, we advertise in-house first,
okay.
and then we advertise outside if we feel we need to get additional applicants for consideration.
Okay, in the past, when this has happened, we've compensated the person filling in. Are we doing that?
We are going to be establishing some compensation. We're looking to see what the budget can support.
Okay.
And that's on the agenda tonight, to make her the acting town clerk.
We're going to be
That's
passing
covered.
over that. I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's needed.
Okay.
It had been mentioned by Kim that it was necessary, but when I've been checking with other town clerks in the area, they had not heard of that requirement before. So I have a call into the state. They have not called me back yet. So I'm asking to put that off until our October 4th meeting.
You're all set?
I'm complete.
Thank you. All right, fifth update, approval of invoices. Cardinal for the police station for invoice number 17 was $10,529.30.
So moved.
Second.
On discussion, all in favor? Aye. Cardinals, the senior center, invoice number 2 for $4,015.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Clover and Bennick, police station invoice number 5,605 for $4,667. What?
Invoice number, yeah.
Illinois number.
That's what it says.
Yeah, 4,000. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So just, I mean, I'm just curious if the public knows, we just go over these tonight and we vote to pay them, but the FIS committee,
Has done a detailed review.
detailed review on these, and
And
then they're
everyone.
voted to send them to us.
Right.
Recommend your approval
Right.
at a
To
selectmen's
that.
meeting,
So if there's any issues, they're usually taken care of.
at the FIS meeting themselves.
I just want the public to know that we zip through these
Right.
and we'll be zipping through them for the senior center coming forward.
Landtel for the police station invoice number 9916750 for $25,200.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Landtel for the police station invoice number 9916751 for $120,116.80.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Places Associated for the senior center invoice number 5282 for $9,813.19.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And RC Builders for the police station for invoice number 9 for $551,659. And I believe that brings us up to 95%?
I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And general updates on the senior center and police station. Police station is, hopefully within a couple of weeks, they will be done. And then we're looking forward to it. In the senior center, we have the interior design done, a lot of the exterior design. The subcommittee is still going over the exterior design, and hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, you believe, that should be finalized.
We have not.
We only got that far,
Yeah.
but we're hoping.
And then just, I mean, I think tentatively, we have a event scheduled on
Second.
October 14th, correct, for the police
It's
station open house?
tentatively set.
Right. I think-
FIS was talking about establishing a grand opening / open house of the new police department facility, and one of the dates we're looking at is October 14th. I think that Tony DeLuzio, our OPM, was just waiting to have another conversation with the builder, RAC, to make sure that they would be far enough along to allow that October 14th date to take place. So
We'll confirm
we haven't
at the next-
advertised it to anyone yet, although we have placed our legislators on notice that we, will be having this event, and we'll confirm the date and time for them. So it's tentatively October 14th, but it may be pushed off a week or two if RAC says they're not ready.
So October 4th, we'll give an update on that, on the next selectmen's meeting. All right, meeting invitations, announcements, September 27th, 5:30, first meeting, and September 27th, Board of Selectmen meeting. And future agenda items.
Fine.
Anybody?
Nothing.
Right. Okay, motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Anita, can you send me a copy of
These,
the
John.
contract with,
Yes, I know.
No, I don't
The,
know who
um,
signs those.
so that I can